Page Builder Basics, if you can't tell, so I hope this is what you actually want to eat. This time it's pretty much going to be a quick intro to what page builders are, sort of why you might want to use one, how they're beneficial, and then the latter half I'm going to maybe do a really quick walkthrough of here's how to start a page using a page builder, and here's a couple of the elements that you can use in it. It's just going to be a few different things towards the end of the talk. Depending on how much time I have left after I finish talking with you guys, that'll determine how far we get with actually building out that example page. And I get to learn how to use one of these. I've never used one before, so or maybe it won't work. Hey, at least keyboards work, I think, or not. I'll click on it, and that works too. I'm Rebecca, or Becky, either one. I'm a designer and a quote-unquote developer. I don't know. I've called myself a developer plenty of times. I use a lot of HTML and CSS, but I don't do as much database or stuff like that. So I get away with what coding skills I can, and then rely more on, am I able to design things pretty and then make them appear on web pages? That's a lot of what I do. You can find me at pretty much everything that says RS Sharpie. It's going to be my Twitter handle, that'll be my Instagram handle. I think that's also my Facebook page, but probably not going to accept friend requests because that's kind of odd. But page builders, and what are they? So they're essentially a type of visual editor for your web page, a WYSIWYG editor, or a what you see is what you get kind of thing. So normally when we open up a WordPress page builder or just edit a page on WordPress, it opens up that lovely text box that we're all super used to seeing all the time. You can type in it, you can change what your paragraphs are, if they're going to be a heading or if they're bolded or italic. But beyond that, and dropping in an image, there's not too much that we get for changing the layout of what that page is. What a page builder does is it really expands what we can do just by opening that page editor. And you'll see an example when I show you stuff a little bit later on. But it's a lot of the times it turns into either a massive shortcode library, if any of you guys are familiar with what shortcodes are in WordPress. It's kind of it's not quite code, it's like a little line of text that tells WordPress to go and find another piece of code and then puts it into the page. So a lot of page builders are sort of like that, where they just tell WordPress go and find all these pieces of code and compile my page together so when someone clicks on it, it actually loads the right information. They also allow for new types of content on there. So say you want to put a small little gallery slider that just rotates through, say 3 or 4 different pictures. You can put that in there as a small little content block. You can also put say you want to do 3 icons, those really big ones that sort of tell here's the 3 areas that my content really focuses on. It lets you just drop in those without having to save out an image and put it on your page. They actually have little icon libraries most of the time that you can click and grab and put different ones on there and colors them differently and whatnot. It also really removes that need to know how to code when it comes to making really custom WordPress pages, because for the most part it does all the coding for you and you just get to look at the page as you're editing it and be is this what I want it to look like? Yes, that's what I want to look like. And then you hit publish and it does all the code on the back end for you. You don't have to worry about that aspect. So it just makes it a lot simpler, a lot more easy for people who don't know anything about coding to go in and build really cool custom page layouts. And that's sort of the general idea of what a page builder is without getting too specific or detailed, because there's a lot of different kinds. Lots of different kinds. You guys may know or have heard of the Divi theme. It's pretty popular these days, kind of been growing a bit more popular. It's by Elegant Themes. They have a page builder included with it called the Divi Page Builder. That's a really common one. Visual Composer is another one that shows up a lot. If you get your themes off of ThemeForest, quite a few of the themes that you get off of there are compatible with the Visual Composer builder. There's also Beaver Builder, Site Origin, Elementor, Themify, Fusion Builder, which comes with most of the Theme Fusion or the Fusion themes. That's just a couple of them. I did notice there's the Grid Builder or Bold Grid that's out there. It looked like they were some type of page builder too. They have stands right next to Flywheels out if you guys want to check that out afterwards. I haven't gotten a chance to talk with them, but it seems like that's what they are. So there's a lot of them. This is just a few that either I've heard of somewhere or I've done some type of work with, but I haven't necessarily worked with all of these. Ones I've worked with specifically is the Visual Composer, Divi Builder, and Fusion Builder. Those are ones that I at least have personal experience with. So if you guys have questions about those, I can possibly answer them. The other ones I listed, I really won't have any idea how to do stuff with. But you guys can always go and Google them and check them out later and kind of figure out how to use them, or there's plenty of different video tutorials online of people who will walk you through how to do stuff with these builders and stuff like that. And they have different levels of functionality that they give you. Some of them offer you tons of different unique elements you can put in there. Some of them are really simple and they just give you those sort of basic and core things that they think a WordPress page would really need. So it depends. You guys want to do some research to determine what type of page builder you think will work best for you. And some of them, the editor is a bit different too, so maybe you'll make your decision based on how comfortable you are using that specific page builder's editor. One thing you have to do though, when you're thinking about using a page builder, is not all themes are built compatible with page builders. And some ways to sort of make sure that your theme is compatible with it is, like I mentioned before, if you're on ThemeForest, not all, but quite a few of the themes on ThemeForest are compatible with Visual Composer or potentially one of those other page builders I mentioned. And actually ThemeForest has one of those search options. You can actually click Visual Composer as one of them, and then it'll filter out all the people who have selected Visual Composer as being one of the plugins that they're compatible with. So that's one way to make it a little easier. You can also, in your search bar on ThemeForest, you can add the name of whatever the page builder is that you're thinking about using, and then it'll try and find themes that have at least mentioned the name of that page builder inside of it. You can also just search Google for the page builder you want to use. Say you want to use the Site Origin builder or the Beaver builder or something like that. You can search just Google Beaver builder compatible themes or something like that, and either the theme creator's theme page will mention, hey, we're compatible with this page builder, or the page builder might even recommend, hey, use our page builder with these themes because we really recommend them because they work really well with what our page builder is. You can also do the flip-flop with that and say you have a theme that you really want to be able to use, but you're not sure if you're a page builder or if it's compatible with any type of page builder. You can always Google the name of the theme that you want to use and then tack on the name of one of the page builders you'd like to try and see if there's any notes that people have about, hey, this page builder really doesn't work with this theme, or maybe it does, and maybe people are comments of hey, this one theme actually works really well with this specific page builder, or maybe it works really well with this other type of page builder. But it is something to be aware of because you'll run into themes occasionally that they're not compatible, and you're going to try and use a page builder on it, and the code's not going to show up in there right. You're going to end up erroring out your theme, or the theme's just not going to be able to have a good conversation with that plugin per se. Because most of the time, these page builders are actually just a plugin that you're adding in to your WordPress site, which is actually nice because it just plugs right in. You don't have to add a theme on top of it. It just normally talks pretty easily with themes, but there is occasion you'll run into one where they're not going to work well together. So you either can find out the hard way after you install both of them at the same time and everything kind of freaks out on you, or you can do some research ahead of time to make sure that you have things that are actually going to talk well with each other. And when it comes to page builders, some people there's some pros and some cons about should you use them, are they really good to use? Some people don't like the concept of page builders, other people really like the concept of page builders. Some of the cons is one we already talked about is that they're not always compatible, because sometimes you'll go out and you'll find a really great theme, the look of it's right, the way that they built the back end is really great for what you want to use it for, but when you try and add a page builder to it, the theme freaks out and it doesn't actually work with it, which is one of the cons of if you want to try and use it, but the theme that you're already utilizing doesn't actually agree with using a page builder plugin. So, I mean, that's one of the cons that some people talk about. The other one that people talk about is it either adds junk or excessive lines of code, depending on what type of page builder plugin you're going to use. I had mentioned earlier that they tend to be like a short code library almost, so it's going to go and it's going to call out a bunch of code. So like when you're editing your page, you could see all those little lines of short code, but then you go to the front end and there's like just a bunch of like HTML instead of those shortcodes. And some people say that these page builders will add like too much code and it's going to slow down your website because you have all these excess divs or these excess boxes that are getting put in the page. It's like, oh, you don't really need all of those. And these builders are just, they're weighting down your website. They're going to make it go slower. There's extra processing time for loading in those libraries of code that the website needs to then go and retrieve and be able to populate it. And some ways that you can actually counteract that is, make sure you have like a caching plugin, because a lot of the times these page builders will exist on many other websites out there, and so having cache plugins installed will actually make it quicker for when you're loading your new pages. There's also a couple page builders out there that aren't based off of shortcodes and are actually quicker about loading, and they're not going to bog down your website. But even then, when it comes to it, like they're not going to be drastically affecting it. And if they are, that might actually be more of a server thing, and that your server's not doing a very good job of quickly loading files when it comes to people loading on your website. That might be another thing to look into, is just what kind of server are you hosting your website on? Is it a fast server? So the pros, though, is that it's very easy per page custom layouts. So you don't have this same repeat layout all the time. Say that you want your home, so you want your home page to be super customized and look one way, but then you want your services page to look really customized and really unique as well. Page builders make it super easy for you to have those separate, very custom, very different looking page layouts without having to build your like custom host or custom page templates or anything like that. And in the end, it'll also, for a couple of them, they'll make it so you have fewer overall plugins, because a lot of the times these page builders will include a couple of those ways that you can like extend your pages out. So the thing with like having the little small slider on your page, you don't need to add a plugin to get that. Most of the time a page builder will come with that ability, so you don't need to have all of these side plugins that are offering you like, oh, here's a specific cool way of doing your gallery. Your page builder might already have that put into it. So you can kind of cut down on the total number of plugins that you're going to be using across your web page. And sweet, that only took me like 12 minutes. So now I can go and show you how to build a page. Which means I get to sit down in front of a computer and not look at you guys as much. And if you guys have questions, feel free to just yell and interrupt me. If you don't have to yell super loud, it's pretty common. But I can totally answer questions as we're going through it. So I put together a quick page that we're going to mock up. Well, here's an example of what I was going to show you guys. We might do more than that. But pretty much what we're going to do is sort of like if you want to build your custom homepage, is got this nice cat on the top here, slightly parallaxed. We have 3 pictures, some headlines, and a little bit of text to go with them. And we have another section here with a picture on the side. We have our little icon.
A question, did you use a base theme for this, or was this just a page builder completely open, like a completely no theme page builder template?
This is one that I'm using the Salient WordPress theme that's off of.
Which one is it?
Salient, Salient.
Yeah, and is that both .org and .com or just .org?
So Salient is a theme that I purchased off of ThemeForest.
ThemeForest, okay.
Yeah, that's the one off of ThemeForest that had, it actually had Visual Composer bundled with it. That's the other thing that you'll find when you go to ThemeForest is a lot of the themes that are compatible with a page builder, they'll sometimes actually include the page builder when you purchase it. Some of them will even expand on top of that page builder. Like, I believe Salient might be one of them where they've actually added a couple like Salient specific aspects to Visual Composer, and they've just built out a couple of extra pieces to it. And sometimes people will do that, is they'll add little aspects. Yeah.
I've noticed a trend with some of those themes where with Visual Composer they tend to remove the front end component.
Yeah, this is
they
one
don't
of those.
communicate very well, and I see a lot of other people going and rebuying it.
Yeah.
The Visual Composer license. So, what's the deal there?
With the with the bundle and then not having the front end?
Well, I guess the first question would be, why are they removing some of the builder functionality?
And that might be something where those aspects that they've added on is that they didn't build them to preview that front end aspect of it. Because the one thing, so what he's referencing is with Visual Composer, there's a back end editor and there's a front end editor. And the front end editor will look very similar to this. There's it's like in like the upper left corner, you'll just get a couple little icons that'll give you the little edit options. You can move stuff around using it. And so it pretty much will show you the live version of your page. The back end, which is what I'll end up showing you because Salient is one of those themes where it doesn't have that front end editor. Also, I'm more comfortable working in the back end, and you can see how the content is laid out a little bit easier. And in that case, actually switch over.
Wait a minute, what's the back end?
I'll show you real quick. So if I go and edit this page, let's see. Is that super fast internet that they mentioned is name?
So this would be the back end editor.
Yeah, so this is what's normally when you go and edit a page. And right now, my page is still loading. And once it actually loads, then it'll show you the page editor. But it's taking a while. So let's do that.
Could we really dumb this down for a minute? We are completely new to this, and we have taken over a website for an organization that hasn't been updated in like 4 years. So when you talk about page builder and themes, you have to find 2 of them to work together before you can even start? Or is page builder like the means by which to change the theme, by the means by which to alter a theme? Am I getting this?
So you're gonna have your theme, which is just gonna be like the visual style of what your website is. And
Okay.
some will offer more visual customization than others. Some are just very simple, like here's a couple changes to what it looks on the front end.
Okay.
And then a page builder is a plugin that you add on top of
Okay.
it. And then normally when you go and edit a page, which like I said, I'm not sure why this one's taking ages to load. My pages are just taking super long to load right now. And then what that plugin will do is instead of, so at the page that we were just at, just had that big text box area, it'll actually switch your editor over from just a simple text box to this like page builder that we're talking about where it has like these different elements. Hey, sweet, it loaded this time. So this one you'll see up the left it says Visual Composer, which is the one that I'm using. Just above it you'll see something that says Classic Mode. And when you switch back to Classic Mode, that'll switch back over to that your plain text box editor option. And actually, if we switch to it, these are all of those shortcodes that we were talking about.
Okay.
Yep. So that's where if you look through here, this page has a lot of shortcodes. And in between it, you can find like, oh, like here's part of one of our paragraphs. That's not actually code, that's like one of our paragraphs of text. So you can kind of look back in here, you can see these are all of the pieces of shortcode of that plugin reaching out and calling. And then when you go to the front end, it'll actually just be HTML text by the time people view it. But what you were talking about, so in this case, I have not set up Estimate, but you'll see the Salient Visual Composer, which is the drag and drop builder, and theirs is specifically tweaked a little bit to match their Salient WordPress theme.
That's nice.
Yeah. And so in this case, when I first installed the theme, it actually had a little pop-up that was like, hey, we have some recommended plugins that go along with our theme. And it'll take you to a page, and it suggested I install WooCommerce, which I really don't need because this isn't an e-commerce website. But it also suggested Contact Form 7, which I did add, and then it suggested I add the Salient Visual Composer aspect. So this is one of those themes where it bundled the two together, and then recommended that you install the page builder Visual Composer as well, because that really expanded, they built on top of it. Yeah.
Okay, I always have to ask, so why did you pick this theme? What do we like?
This one? This one I'm mainly familiar with because of the company that I work with. We kind of have a couple of themes that we go back to all the time. And when I first started there, this was one of the first, I believe there's 2 primary themes that we were working with at the time. We used Salient and then we used Impreza was the other one. Both of them used Visual Composer, which is sort of the reason we went back to them, just because it's the same page builder, so we didn't have to relearn, oh, this one uses Divi's page builder, this one uses the Visual Composer builder. I need to remember what are the limitations of each of these. They have very similar limitations. Also, a lot of them, they both had very good theme options when it came to doing some of that visual customization on the front end. A lot of themes will have, so we have our little salient tab over here, and these are all of the theme custom options if we went and looked at those.
And then the question I should ask, what kind of sites are you trying to build? Like what, you said there was e-commerce?
This one isn't, but the salient theme suggested that I install WooCommerce, just because they're like, hey, if you have e-commerce, you probably want to install this one. But as for the company I work with, we do lots of different, we don't do very large WordPress websites, but we've done a couple e-commerce ones, we've done a couple just like small business ones, that kind of thing. It's just nice having a theme like this that we can utilize for multiple clients is nice because we can get very familiar with one theme and then we can go back and keep making, we know exactly how to make this specific theme do the things that we want it to on the front end.
I mean, with 10,000 themes in the world, I like to hear, show me your favorite one, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Why you do this. So I always ask people why you do that.
Did you still have a question about the difference between the builder?
I think I
You kind of got it?
get it.
Okay.
Yep.
Alright. So, if we go back here, so normally when you first open a page to edit, this section would just be empty. And it wouldn't automatically open the page builder right away. You would have to click on the button here that would switch it over to using the page builder. And like you had mentioned, this one doesn't have that front end editor. Normally there's two buttons up there, so like right next to classic mode there would be like front end. And that would pull you over to a page that looks very similar to this. It has a couple other edit options on it though, and so you can kind of see a little bit easier, like this is what my page would look like, kind of thing as I'm editing it.
And this is where you can lay stuff out, put in elements of type X, Y, Z.
Yeah, but you can do that on the classic mode as well. So like in here, I already have all my blocks. If I hover over one, I get the options to edit it. I can duplicate it, or I can delete this
Oh, so
section.
this is kind of like a schematic of what we were seeing. It's just
Yeah,
it's not pretty.
I prefer editing this one because it simplifies my layout, so I don't get distracted as much by, oh, that's the wrong picture there, and I don't like what that looks like. I focus more on what are the actual elements on my page. Like, okay, I have 2 custom heading sections, and they're in like one big section across the top. And then I have 3 columns, and they're each gonna have one image in them, and they're gonna have a headline, and they're gonna have a paragraph. So it makes me more think about like what are the elements on my page as opposed to what does my page actually look like. Because sometimes I'll build out and I'll put all my elements in, make sure that I have the structure of the page built out, and then I'll start, going back through and be like, all right, what images do I need to put in here? What do my headlines need to be? That kind of thing. So at least for me, I find this to be the easier side because I can see more clearly what piece is where, and I don't have any like extra pieces that don't need to be there or something like that. So this one we have a full width header, has 2 lines of text on it. Then we'll have a section with the 3 columns, an image, and we have another section here where I'll have an icon, and there's going to be some other images there. But say you want to start this from scratch, if we open up the brand page. Which is loaded. It's going to sit and think like the other one did. There we go. Okay, so when you first open it, it'll actually give you a little pop-up message and be like, hey, you have Page Builder, do you want to use it? Not all the time, it won't always do this, but Visual Composer tends to do a lot, is to let you know, hey, I'm here, do you want to actually use me? You can click Finish to close it. So right now we're just in our regular text editor. You can actually start off this way, you can be like, you can just like type stuff in here and it'll show up on your page. But after, say you type in like a paragraph and you realize, oh wait, I actually want to use Page Builder for this. You click Page Builder and it'll give you a little tutorial to be like, hey, you can add new elements or pull stuff in from a template. But if you notice, it actually pulled over my text of hello and actually pre-put it into a little box for me. Because it's like, probably don't want to lose this information, so I'm going to carry it over for you when I make this into a Page Builder page. Which can be kind of nice, like say you already have pages built out and then you decide you want to add a page builder to your website. You can go into these pages, click Page Builder, and it'll keep all your information, but it'll probably just dump it into one big text box. And then you'll just have to slowly pull it out and put it in all all of your different element pieces. But we'll get rid of that for now. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is I can build out a page in Page Builder and then apply my theme after? Is that what you're saying?
It could be either way. So normally when you're first starting out on WordPress, you're already going to have a theme set up, whether you're using 2017 or if you're going to go and install like a custom theme of some type.
You know, sometimes you build it and you start going through different themes, say, okay, like this one, this one, this one.
Yep.
So if I build it in the Page Builder, I'm done, and then I can go play with my themes.
Yeah, you can. Like, that'll work because most, and again, it goes back to the is your theme compatible with this specific page builder?
Right.
Which, as long as you have a theme that's going to work with Visual Composer, then your Visual Composer elements will carry over. One
Go ahead.
Yeah. One aspect of this, though, say we want to add an element. If you'll notice, there's this tab called. So this is like the layout. Here's all the different types of elements you put on your page. But specifically to your question, there's this thing called the nectar elements. I believe is the stuff that is specifically tied to the Salient theme.
Okay.
So if you switch off of Salient, these elements won't carry over. But like, if you go to just your content, like these things will. These ones are generic. They're going to be across every type of Visual Composer.
Okay, that was my question, how the theme and the builder interact, and the theme gives the builder more things stuff.
Yeah.
But it has, you know, there's things in the theme, right, that are global, all the pages, that the page editor is not going to change.
Yes.
Right?
And sometimes with certain elements, you can override things within the theme. For example, actually one of the things that we would be adding here is a custom heading, which is essentially text with Google Fonts. So if we want a custom heading, we can go in here, it just say like, you can have custom text, or it'll actually give us the option of, do you want to just put your page title in here, but you don't have to retype it? We'll stick with custom text. They put some in here, and there's like, you can type something. In my case, on my page, I did Curiosity Killed the Cat, so I'll just carry that over, put that in. That'll be my headline. You can also make this text linkable. You can just click select URL, like how you would normally edit a link in WordPress. You can just type in, click set link on it, and it'll automatically link this. Just this header will link to what you put in there. You can choose what size you want that header element to be. Do you want it to be an H1 or something smaller? You can choose how you want to align it. If you want to give it a specific like text size or line height, you can give it its own custom color with a little color picker here. You can also choose at this point, so your theme is going to have like its own setup of headings. Like its H1 is going to look like something, and its H2 and everything else is going to have a style assigned to it by the theme. With this element, you can actually override that in just this one instance. You can be like, actually, I want this one to have lobster typeface, specifically just this headline. It gives you a little preview of like, this is what it's going to look like. There's a little sample of that text. You can choose if there's other, like, there's a bold version of it or an italic version, it'll give you that option. If you want, you can choose to have it animate in. They have a couple different animations. And then the extra class name is in reference to CSS, if you want to have a CSS class applied to it. There's also some other design options in here if you want to add like some spacing on it, have a border and some other options. But let's just say, so right now we have it set to, it says Curiosity Killed the Cat, and we said it's going to be set in lobster. So we see our changes on that. Curiosity Killed the Cat set in the lobster typeface, which this theme has already pulled and talked to the Google Fonts library. So this one will actually be able to access any of the fonts in the Google Font library and let you set what your custom headings are to it. We can always go back and say we don't want it to be lobster. We can go in and we can change that really quick in here. Or if we don't want to have a custom one, we can say, yeah, just use the one that the theme wants it to look like. And then we can save changes on it.
And the font is down, I'm kind of known through the squad about HTML. And so the font is downloaded and cached with the other page elements that Chrome is caching the page.
Yeah,
so it doesn't have to be installed on the client's computer the first time you use it.
No, so what this theme does is, you know, when you want to add like a Google font to your website, it'll normally say you need to add this line to your CSS code, or you need to add this line to this other file or something like that. It has a way of calling out to the Google Fonts library. This theme is already doing that. This theme is pretty much calling out and being like, hey, if this person wants to use this typeface, it automatically adds that line of code that goes out and grabs the typeface off of Google for you. So this theme is built to essentially grab that information for you, so you don't have to worry about adding that line of CSS that says, go grab the lobster typeface from Google Font Library. This one will essentially, it'll just do that for you once you choose, I want to use this typeface.
So Google Font Library is shared by many sites and is available by Google. It's not specific to CLA.
Correct, yeah. It's just a library that Google hosts on the internet. All the typefaces in it are free. You can access any of them. You can either download them, you can source them to your own website without needing to upload it to your own server, which you could do if you'd like, but the Google servers are super fast, so it's probably a better idea to reference them instead of your own servers.
And if different sites use one of those things, Google would cache them across it in Chrome. I mean, Chrome would cache it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't chat. Oh, cool.
Yeah. There's still the line of it needing to reach out and get it from Google, but yeah. So we have our one single headline, which I realize we actually want it to be centered instead of left, so we'll switch that, save changes to it. But the one thing about this one, we realize is it's full height and it has a nice cover image around the background. So we go back to our editor here. So this line here is our custom text option. You'll notice there's a little plus sign above it, some editors. And then there's this other edit option over on the right here. So if you notice, this one says you can edit this row, which a lot of page builders, what they rely on is different row elements or row blocks. And within each of those rows, we click over this guy, so edit this column. So it's sort of like when you think of like your spreadsheets, you got rows and you got columns. And in this case, our elements are always going to be blocked off in a bunch of rows going down, and then we can choose how many columns across we want it to be. And we can edit just that entire row, and there's a couple options that we have for row editing, and then we can also edit the columns individually and say we want this specific column to look like this. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to add that background image, and then we're going to make it full height in our browser. So one of the things we want to do is the type is essentially telling you like how wide is this row element going to be, which in container normally means, so normally themes, they sort of like that, how websites have that edge to them, when they like stop at a certain point and then just goes into white space after that. That's what the in container option means. If you go full width background, that means whatever the background color or the background image is it's going to go all the way to the edges of the browser. It'll just keep expanding, doesn't matter how wide the browser gets. If you do full width content, that means the stuff inside of that row is also going to go all the way to the edges, which I can show an example with one of the other blocks that we do, which will have an option where it might go wider. In this case, we want the background to go all the way across, and then we want to add a picture to the background, which we can either upload stuff, but I have nothing on this computer, so we're going to use the stuff I uploaded beforehand, if it's going to show it. There we go. Alright. Use this one, because that's what we had on our other page. So we just hit set image. And now we have a little preview of this is what our background image is going to look like. Can't quite see, but there's a little red X just over the middle. Click that, it'll remove it, so then you don't have a background image anymore. Or you can hit plus, and this option will replace what that background image is. You can also choose to hide this background image on mobile. So say you have something that looks really great on your desktop, because it's a super awesome like horizontal landscape photo or something like that. But that once it gets down to your phone, like you can't read your text or something. You can choose to turn it off actually. You can do a little bit of positioning, so you can say where do you want your photo to like start, essentially, or where you want it to be positioned. So in this case, they start it in essentially the top left of your photo. It's going to start in the top left of the box. You can also choose, say you want to align it, so it to be center aligned and it'll be like vertically aligned, so horizontally and vertically aligned. can choose if you'd like the background to repeat. So say you have like a pattern or something that's just really small, you can be like, yeah, I want it to repeat across it. In this case, I don't want it. I just want one nice big photo in my background. One of the things that we have set on the other one is if we have it set to full height. So normally what full height means is pretty much like this box will be as tall as your initial screen size is. And then as soon as they scroll, it'll go past, but it'll be as tall as their first window is. So you know, a lot of those websites that you guys will go to, there's a really nice full screen picture, but say you go on your phone, oh, it's not going to be 800 pixels tall on your phone, it'll be the height of your phone's window. And that's what this button will do.
Yeah, so, okay, so that brings the question, so responsiveness, is Salient considered a responsive theme?
Yes.
And does Page Builder know how to keep that responsiveness?
Yes, and actually most page builders are responsive. So when we come to, go back
If
to,
you're new to web building, it means what's it look like on a phone? Or if you were to take your screen and shrink it down real
Yeah.
small so it looks like a phone screen.
so yeah,
A bunch of
so,
stuff changes, does just, well, why don't we get a smaller, so that's called responsive.
which actually, so if we look at this one, most page builders are built-in responsive. So specifically, we have these 3 columns, which we would hope when we go down to mobile, they don't squish themselves until there's 3 across our mobile screen and there's like 1 word per line. What page builders will do is as you shrink it, it'll actually automatically break those blocks to stack on top of each other. And it knows this because it already has it built into the code on the back end to, once you reach a certain screen width, it'll collapse them into their own rows essentially. But then when you go back up to full size again, it'll bring them all across and I'll put them back into their 3 column view.
And if you had a menu across the top of pages, but they would turn into a hamburger menu and all that stuff.
Yeah, I just don't have a menu on this website, so. And the menu is gonna be something that's based on the theme, what the theme decides to do at mobile. But yeah, it's a good question for page builders though, because yes, page builders do tend to have that built-in aspect of being responsive, and that they're gonna change their layout based on the screen size.
Good question. So back when you were at the row menu, when you were editing, I like this layout, but I'm confused whether this is the theme editing Visual Composer, or a base WordPress code that's being presented. So what element, or what is that actually?
So this little window here, which you can actually move around, this is part of the page builder
Okay.
option. So this is pretty much, when you install that page builder plugin, part of it is how to edit the page builder itself, which tells it when you click on certain elements on the page, it'll pop up this little mini box that'll say, here's all the little customization you can do to this element. So this is all stuff that's based within the page builder plugin itself.
Okay.
This isn't going to be the theme, and this isn't necessarily just like the basic WordPress editor in any way.
Because when you brought up menus, sometimes I was confused with it, because WordPress itself has stock menu functionality.
Yeah.
And then the theme builds on top of that,
Yep.
and then the more plugins you add, it changes how you.
Yep, and then you have, and then some will just like override the whole menu of everything.
Right, and then I lost what the native behavior was, basically.
Yep, and I've had that on occasion too. I've added a WooCommerce plugin for shipping, and then my WooCommerce-based shipping options don't do anything anymore. I have to remember, oh no, go to this plugin because that's how I make those changes, that kind of thing. But so yeah, in this case, it's the plugins editor.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah. So
Can I ask one specific thing? We use the event calendar, which is a big deal on our site.
yeah,
Does that tend to get along with these kind of things?
I
I mean,
haven't.
do you have any experience
yeah.
with the event calendar?
Not specifically, like most of the clients we've done stuff with, we haven't really needed to use an event calendar. But for the most part, like a lot of other plugins do work well with Page Builder. It more gets into do they have overlapping capabilities?
So I could Google up the event calendar and Visual Composer and
Yeah.
compete.
And you might find either people recommending a specific event calendar plugin, or someone might have actually built a Visual Composer specific like page element that you can drop in, that kind of thing. Which I wouldn't be surprised if someone's done something like that.
If people make event calendar, their URL is tr.be. They're kind of out there in the internet world. So a lot of people use it who do event calendars because it's just rocking. There's a whole sub-galaxy of plugins specifically to work with the event calendar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so I'm going to start experimenting with that. 3 years, never thought about being a page builder, so this is the greatest thing. But I just wondered if you had any experience.
Yeah, not specifically with event calendars, but similar to you mentioning the event calendar that has a lot of plugins that augment it. Visual Composer has a lot of those types of things as well, where they have a bunch of other people who have gone in and they've built out these like augmenting type plugins where they'll add a new form of functionality to it. And that's sort of what the Salient version of it is doing. Is the Salient version has added on, say, 15 or 20 additional things on top of what Visual Composer would normally do. There's other people who have done something like specific that they've added onto it, which there's probably one other that does event calendar type stuff.
Cool.
So back to where we were, which was we do full height row. It gave us this option too, which is the column positioning, which is pretty much saying how do we want our content to align. Like if our pages or if our box is the entire height of our screen, where do we want our content to go that's inside of that box? We want to show up on the top of the box, the middle of the box, the bottom of the box. It defaults to middle because that's where people assume that you want your content to show up, but you can always change it if you wanted to. We're going to click Enable Parallax Background just for fun, and then they have a couple speeds mixed in there, like do you want it to move really fast in comparison? You can give just a straight background color. They have a couple other things, like do you want it to be mouse parallax, like if you hover over it with your mouse, does the background move? Or do you want a video to be in the background? So sometimes you go to those websites, they don't have just a picture, they have a video playing in the background. When you check that, then it's like, all right, do you want to overlay? Do you want the video to be muted? What's the YouTube URL for it? And you just paste that URL in, and it'll call out to YouTube, and it'll just load it into the background on your page, but we're not going to do that. You can also choose if you want your text to be aligned differently. You can choose, you can add a little bit of padding to the top or the bottom, which is essentially just adding some space inside of the box if you want some extra space in there. You can also choose if you want to turn off the row, which is what the disable button does. And essentially you'll just turn off a row. So say you want to put in like one of these boxes that's like a weather announcement or something. Say you do maybe you do like delivery type service and weather like interrupts all the time. You can have a little weather announcement that normally is disabled, and then, oh no, a snowstorm came and we can't deliver on time this week. You can just go in, you can uncheck disable row, save the changes, update the page, and it'll turn back on your little announcement that says, hey, we're going to be delayed this week because of weather. But we want our headline to be there on this page, so we're not going to turn it off. So we just saved our changes, which to recap was we added our background image, we made it the full height of our screen. So now if we preview our page, we have a full head size picture, which there's not much to scroll through right now because there's nothing beneath it. But if you notice, our background will move slightly as we're doing it too. Not too much because we put it to slow, so it's not really going to move too much as we scroll. But then we have our little headline in there too, and it's centered in the very middle vertically. So real quick, because I have like a couple minutes left, we'll just go over those column options too. So the first one I put in here, it always drops it in as just one column across. This little dotted line here, this is some pre-built options for how many columns would you like. And once you click it, it'll actually change. So say we want a quarter column, a half column, and then another quarter column. You click that, you notice it broke it up. We have a section that's a quarter of what our page width is. We have a half of what our page width is, and we have another quarter of our page width. And it's essentially the same thing as up here, but now we have 4 sections broken up. Or we can switch back and be like, actually, I just want 3. I just want 1/3 of my page all the way across. So now we have 3 1/3 size columns. And you can actually move a block in here. So say we don't want the headline up there, we want it down here. You can just grab these elements, drag them into your other blocks. You can also say, I actually want to copy that because I really like what that looked like, but I still want it to be up here. I just want another version of it down here. And now these are completely separate of each other. So if I go in, I edit this one, I can say something else, like I can grab this Sleeping is super underrated headline, and I can put that in here instead, and be like, yeah, I think Sleeping is super underrated.
Presumably, is that where you would add a column then as well? Next to that, there was a plus mark. Would you be able to add a column?
Yep, you can specifically add a column. In this case, so just show those are our two separate headlines. It's just going to be in the same style. Yeah, so what you can do is you can use, these are some just like common layouts that people tend to use. You can also just individually add one. But then in that case, it's going to be down here, it's not going to like size up to be one all across. And you have to go in individually and be like, what fraction does this one need to be able to like equal this column out?
And then will it put it back up the row then, that same row, or will it keep it separate? I'm sorry.
So in this case, so if we left that there, what would end up happening is it will put it below those three. Because
Okay.
essentially what's already happening is the three above it, they're each claiming 33% of 100%.
So if you knock that down to a quarter, would it pull that fourth one up there and have 4 across?
That one, when you first enter, like if you just click the plus button, it's going to automatically put in 100% wide.
Okay,
And so you have to go in, that's where, so there's these little edit options above our columns.
okay.
If you go in there and you do responsive options, this tells you how wide it is. So in this case, it's 12 columns wide. So Visual Composer tends to break down, the smallest it'll go is 1/12 of a screen of 100%.
We just need 4. We need 4 columns, so ultimately
Yeah.
it can be done.
Exactly, yeah. And so you can actually switch over and say you want 2 columns, they'll fix it, or there's an option where you can go 6 columns across. There's also a little custom option, which will pop up and you can just type in those
That's what I'm looking
fractions.
for. Okay,
Yep. And so it still has, these are just those pre-built ones.
Okay.
Say you wanted your 4, it'll tell you like, hey, this is what you have to type in to get 4 across.
got it.
But you could also switch and be like, actually, I want a half column and then 2 quarter columns. Click update and change it down there. So it's kind of like a little like mini fractions math box.
Got it.
But you only have to worry about going down to 1/12.
Okay, but you can do all that in one row, change it, you wouldn't have to add a second row then at that point.
Yeah, and that is, and say you really like having it like this. Say you really like having a half column and 2 quarters. You can duplicate that and be like, all right, now I have another row of half and 2 quarters. And you can switch that one and be like, actually, this one I want to be 3 wide instead. Something like that. So yeah. Let's look at one of our other elements here. Say we want to add an image. This one, if you haven't noticed, there's a nice little search box in the upper right there. You can just start typing, say, I want to add an image. Here are all of the different elements for adding an image. I can do an image with hotspots, which is essentially like little hover spots on your image. You can do a single image, which is essentially like how you would normally add one image to a page. It's just literally, it's like a little box that just adds an image to a page. You can also do cascading images, which is going to have some type of animation effect of going between different images, whether it's like a little slider effect where it'll rotate through them, something like that. Salient has specifically added a comparison one, so it's like there's going to be 2 images, and it'll let you, I believe this is one that lets you like slide between the 2. You can also add an image gallery too. There's a couple different options for laying out that image gallery. But it's similar to your regular like WordPress gallery option. You go in, you edit it, you choose a bunch of images you want in it, and then they just have a couple other layout options when it comes to it. So we just want to add one picture. It opens up this, click the plus sign, it will let you choose one of your pictures. Just like normal WordPress, you just click it, hit select image. You can choose how you want to align it. If you want it to show up in the center, left. They also have some of those simple animation stuff. So if you wanted to slide in from one side, or if you wanted to just fade in from nowhere, that kind of thing, has a couple of those things. You can also choose like, oh, I want it to be delayed. You can get a little more specific about that animation. You can choose where you want it to link to, which is either it'll link to the picture itself, you can just hit the checkbox, or you can have it link to a page. You can just put that URL in there and it'll link to another page. Then you can choose if you want it to be slightly smaller or slightly larger than it. Click save. So now I replaced one of those text boxes with an image. Click. Preview again. Now I have our picture there instead of our text box. And similar to the other things, you can hover over it and just click duplicate. And then just move these guys over to each side. Preview again. Now we'll have all 3 of our images all the way across. And then we just can individually edit those. The really nice thing about the duplication factor is, say you have a row that you put a couple of very specific things about, like you chose a specific type of text orientation, like you really like having centered text, and you want the text to be a specific color, and instead of having to go through and like re-put that in every time, you can just duplicate that row and everything will carry over from it. And you don't have to worry about redoing all those settings every time. So anyways, I'm like 10 minutes before 11, so I probably have to be done now. But if you guys have other questions about setting stuff up, I did not get very far in showing you things, so if you want, I can answer other questions. I won't have a computer to show you unless I steal my friend Matt's computer, then I can maybe show you some stuff.
Or you can show us on our own template.
Or I could, if you guys go and install.
Sidebar menus. And I have to say, some people have bosses who insist on sidebar menus.
Yeah, sometimes they do.
Real
Yes.
estate.